How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Graeme Games. I'm working my way through the prototypes of Amnesia Fortnight 2017. If that doesn't mean anything to you, check out the description. I explained it a little bit down there. I played through all the Double Fine games, and now I'm playing through games that were made by other indie studios that joined Double Fine in their game jam. This one is Writer's Block from Misfits Attic. My understanding is that it's basically a Mad Libs game, so I can either do party mode, more goofy, it's like Mad Libs++, or story mode, less goofy, interactive fiction. So I'm going to flip over and try out party mode. Video game pitch 1.0, get it? Dear Double Fine, sometimes I wonder what my favorite Double Fine game is, and I'm so torn. First I think of how much I enjoyed playing Busted Age. The best mechanic in Busted Age was by far the ability to tame wolves. But then I think about how much I enjoyed playing your other title, Psychotic Knots. It was amazing playing in a world where literally everyone was psychotic. And that's when I thought of it. What if you had the ability to tame wolves in a world where literally everyone was psychotic? Am I right? We could call it Psychotic Knots Age, or even Busted Psychotic Knots. Fuck, that doesn't roll off the tongue very well. Let's do lunch. I've already got some concept art for Psychotic Knots Age. Thanks, from Tim. Institute advertisement. Initial concept. Has anyone ever described you as playfully sexual? Do you ever wish they instead described you as moderately masculine? At the Institute of Inadequacies, I think that's how you spell that, for the nominal cost of a batch of homemade snickerdoodles. What we do is we surround you by people who are moderately masculine and will pretend you are also moderately masculine. People who are moderately masculine are very good at this, and it helps that people who are playfully sexual are very gullible. At the Institute of Inadequacies, we offer hope, even to people that are playfully sexual like you. Isn't that worth a batch of homemade snickerdoodles? For you? For your family? To finally be moderately masculine? I don't know if snickerdoodles are moderately masculine or like completely effeminate. I think they're moderately masculine. I think that fits the criteria, and I want them for my family. So get off the couch, stop playing Psychotic Knots Age, and do something about the fact that you're playfully sexual. Please note, the Institute of Inadequacies is not yet recognized as an accredited institute. Movie pitch. Reversion 1.0. The film stars a female protagonist named Woman 1. Age? Adult. In the year? Future. If one doesn't test well, we could always go with agent name. Oh, as in, because they thought Woman 1 was a first and last name, I think. Together, they try to find some common ground by using 5, but even 5 can't mend the heartache they both feel. Tragically, they drift apart, and 8 eventually finds work as a monster rancher. Heartbroken, Woman 1 decides to visit the Institute of Inadequacies, but since it's the past, it doesn't exist yet. But I said the date was the future. So she could be cured and has to accept that she is playfully sexual. However, the Institute wasn't as safe as she thought it would be because 8 was waiting for her. You see, working as a 9 had twisted 8's soul to be super evil. Did I fuck this all up by making my character's name a number? They battle, but in the end, love prevails. Old-timey love. We all learn that the past is dangerous as it is ancient. And we should probably show a scene where Woman 1 is friends with some really funny 6 so that people don't think we're stereotyping 6. Was I supposed to have filled in all of these numbers? Did I screw something up? The end. I can send along the sequel, but figured you may have notes. Movie pitch 1.0. The film stars a female protagonist named I don't know. I know what I want to name her, but I don't know how to spell it. Turley Shemple. Age? Oh, now pick a number. 27. In the year? 10,000. You may question the name Turley Shemple for an action role, but I've done research on Reddit and it's gonna resonate 1000%, since Turley Shemple is old as hell, especially for a tween audience, which I've tested this on. She's haunted by her past, cause there's like a lot of it being so old, but by far what will haunt her forever is the time that she felt inadequate. I am very uncertain about my spelling there. This will all tie in later for a huge payoff. Also, since this takes place in the future, people no longer use iPhones to communicate. They use carvings made in stone tablets. People got so sick of iPhones in the future that they regressed to shittier and shittier technology until they went all the way back to carving shit in a stone. Like super foreign and futuristic carvings made in stone tablets. We could... I don't know how they're futuristic. Maybe they use a laser to carve it, a little easier than chiseling. We could even have a shot with people using carvings made in stone tablets on a big space station or something. Since old people can't really run or jump and stuff, we cut to a crazy chase scene, but it's a chase scene off of the future. So they're riding in a Volkswagen Jetta, but like a really nice one. A nice red one. And she's being pursued by pizza pirates. I don't know what that is, but someone else can fill in that blank. Maybe we should sell branded a Volkswagen Jetta, but like a really nice one, a nice red one, in selected stores. I've got lots of merchandise ideas. Anyway, she evades the pizza pirates and watching several of Volkswagen Jetta, but like a really nice one, a nice red one, explode in a ball of fire. Turley Shemple finally meets her love interest, Pelvis Esley, but their love affair becomes turbulent when Turley Shemple confesses to Pelvis Esley about the time she felt inadequate. Since Pelvis Esley grew up left-handed and an orphan, Pelvis Esley just can't accept the fact that Turley Shemple felt inadequate. Her past rears its ugly head again. They have a really emotional dialogue about this using carvings made in stone tablets, but even carvings made in stone tablets can't mend the heartache they both feel, and they drift apart. But Pelvis Esley eventually dies in a freak accident, mauled by a futuristic cyber gorilla. Heartbroken, Turley Shemple decides to visit the Institute of Inadequacies, where she discovers that she is playfully sexual. However, the Institute wasn't as safe as she thought it'd be, because the same futuristic cyber gorilla that killed Pelvis Esley is waiting for her. It wasn't an accident. The futuristic cyber gorilla had plotted this all along, because in the future, cyber gorilla is way smarter. They way smarter. Way. In the end, everyone realizes that science is as deadly as it is mysterious. And during the credits, we could probably show how we used special effects, where a Volkswagen Jetta, but like a really nice one, a nice red one, exploded into the ball of fire. Just so no one thinks we blew up any of Volkswagen Jetta like a really nice one, a nice red one, or hurt any pizza pirates. The end. I can send along the sequel, but I figured you may have notes. This is definitely like missing pieces that were supposed to be introduced. Just a little bit of an error, I guess. So this is a really funny idea, but I'm definitely running into places where there's like big holes missing it and stuff because it didn't introduce the numbers and the sequences in the right order, which is really unfortunate because then all of a sudden you have these like missing holes in the middle of your Mad Lib. The idea of it's really funny. If there was more stories of this, I would just sit here and type and read that shit all day because Mad Libs have always been so funny to me. I was just getting stupider and stupider with it. It's a shame that it kind of started falling apart. I think I'm going to start story mode. Welcome to Sequence, a story about David and the choices he makes. You're going to play the director. Try and get David to his Hollywood ending. Interior, David's apartment. Morning. Ring, ring. We see a close-up of a phone. Ring, ring. Maybe just one ring. We pull back to see David. He's a mess. Looks like hell. But he's pulled his head up to see the phone. A hand reaches in off frame and quickly lifts, then drops the receiver on the phone's base. We see an upshot of Tim. Man, David, you really need to drink less. Also, you're out of toilet paper. The title frame. Sequence. Story of Tim Keenan. Directed by Graeme Butt Crust. Yes, it's like a smashed together name. It's a combination of several family names. Fade out. Interior video game store. Daytime. Ring. We see David working behind the counter of a retail game store. Psychonauts 2 poster subtly hanging behind him. He reaches down and picks up the phone. It's Tim. Also, I just realized Tim, like Tim Schafer, the character isn't Tim Schafer, but they definitely did that as a reference to him. Tim, David, I've realized you gotta drive. I'm gonna get wasted at the party tonight. David thinks about if he or Tim should drive tonight. He decides the person to drive should be Tim. I'm making you drive, man. I want to get wasted too, and I'm pretty sure I drove last time. No way, I drove last time. You're up, but nice try. You suck. Fine. Hey, I hear Francine is going to be there. You should talk to her again, and this time not just pine about Julie. Yeah, I'll see you in a bit. I gotta go home and change. Interior, David's apartment, afternoon. Ring. What is with all these phone calls? We see David's home phone ringing as he walks in the door in the background. David hovers his hand over the phone and debates, answer or ignore. You decide to ignore. I'm a busy man. I have lots to do. He decides to let the machine get it so he can go change. David goes into his room to change his clothes. We hear a loud horn. David peeks his head out and then goes back into his room. We again hear the horn. This time it does not stop. Damn it, Tim! David rushes out and slams the door behind him, still wearing his work clothes. Muffled through the door. Sorry, Mrs. Hellman, I know, it's not funny at all. Interior, party house, night. Ring! We see a close-up of a door with a call box next to it. A hand reaches out and opens the door to reveal David and Tim. Tim's excited and says, "The party has arrived." David has a slight smile on his face. David bumps into Francine in the kitchen. She asks him how he's been. He starts with small talk, but then quickly launches into a tirade about some of the frustrations of working at a game store selling games. What he really wants to do is make games. He suddenly becomes self-conscious as he realizes how personal he just got with her. She smiles and asks if he's making a game. He admits he has, but says it's not very good. Well, it's your first game. Also, I could be the judge of that. I'm guessing you could use some feedback. Why don't I come over tonight and play it? Tomorrow. Not tonight, tomorrow. Don't get too hasty there, Francine, even though it was me who misread. Yeah, that'd be fun. You really want to try my crappy prototype? Yeah, I really do. If I call you tomorrow, you're going to pick up, right? I'd really like to help. Oh, definitely. On the first ring. Maybe the second. Tim comes over to David. How do you seem to be drunk? We've barely been here half an hour. Oh, I drank a lot before we came here. What is this, amateur hour? Tim looks at David, who at first can't tell if Tim is waiting to tell him good or bad news, but after a moment he realizes the news is good. Do you remember Debbie? Debbie that you dated for like 3 days in middle school? Yes! Well, let's just say I don't have a passenger seat anymore, buddy. I'm sure you can find a ride. He pats David on the back and rushes back to the dance floor as the electric slide starts to play. David walks home alone. A thunderclap sounds and he groans as it starts to rain. Interior of David's apartment. Morning. More ringing. We see a close-up of a telephone. We pull back to see David. He's a mess. Looks like the morning after a night walking in the rain. He sneezes. Achoo. Ring again. David pulls a pillow over his head and goes back to sleep. You dumb fuck. Interior, video game store. Day. Ring. We see David working behind the counter of a retail game store. Blowing up posters subtly hanging behind him, which is another game made for this game jam. He reaches down and picks up the phone. It's Tim. David, I've realized you gotta drive. I'm gonna get wasted at the party tonight. This seems like I'm in a bit of a loop here. David thinks about it. If he or Tim should drive tonight, he decides the person to drive should be... I guess I'll drive this time? Yeah, that makes sense. I can drive, because I don't think I want to get too trashed. Gotta work tomorrow. You are a great man. Yeah, I hear Francine's gonna be there. You should talk to her. Don't just talk about Julie. Yeah, I gotta go home and change. Interior David's apartment. We see the phone ringing as he walks in the door. He hovers his hand over the phone and debates answering. I choose to ignore it again because we're gonna do this right at the party this time. goes to the machine. He realizes he's late, has to pick up Tim. He doesn't really have time to change. He rushes out the door. Interior of the party. We see a close-up of a door with a call box. Hand reaches out. The party has arrived. David bumps into Francine, talking about the game. You want to check out my crappy prototype? Sure, I'll answer it on the first ring, maybe second. Tim comes over to Dave. How do you seem so drunk? We've barely been here half an hour. Oh, I drank a lot before we came. Amateur hour. It is bad news this time. So I kind of threw up a little on Debbie. You remember Debbie. Anyway, I think that was a bad move. Definitely wouldn't recommend that one. I was going a little deep in my playbook there. I also think I got a lot more of that coming. You want to bail? Yeah, I'll go get the car. I'm not letting you until you go throw up in the bathroom, though. David drives them home as it starts to rain, listening to Tim sing the Little Mermaid soundtrack entirely from memory. Interior of David's apartment. We see a close-up at the telephone. David sitting in the bed. He reaches for the phone. A hand reaches in from off-frame and quickly lifts, then drops the phone on the receiver. You dumbass, you were supposed to actually answer it. We see an upshot of Tim. Man, David, really need to turn the ringer down on that phone. Some of us are hungover. Also, I didn't have any extra boxers and I got puke on mine. Hope you don't mind I borrowed a pair. Back into the video game store. Are you just going to keep going to this party over and over again? Tim, you're going to drive this time. I'm going to answer the phone this time. Hello? Oh, hey, Julie. David talks to Julie for a few minutes, but she has to go. He wants to tell her he loves her. He wants to tell her he hates her. Instead that should have been an option right there. Instead he tells her he's doing well and they should grab lunch sometime. David goes into his room to change clothes. We hear a loud horn. David peeks his head out and then goes back into his room. We again hear the horn. This time it does not stop. Damn it, Tim. David rushes out and slams the door behind him, still wearing his work clothes. Muffled through the door. Sorry, Mrs. Hellman, I know it's not funny at all. Is this the writer's block that the guy can't think of how to progress the story? So he's like you're just working through different iterations trying to see what will work? So the whole party's arrived thing, David looks a bit down and distant. David mulls over by the drinks. Francine walks by, smiles and nods at her, refills the drink with a very heavy pour of vodka. He realizes he didn't ask Julie what she was doing tonight and wonders if she's having fun. Maybe if he'd asked her if she wanted to come to the party. I couldn't seem to get Francine to come over, so I think that was a dead end. Tim comes over to David. David, how do you seem so drunk? We've barely been here half an hour. I drank a lot before we came. Amateur hour? Good news? Do you remember Debbie? Yeah, they're gonna go home together. Going home in the rain. But pull a telephone, doesn't answer it. David knocks the phone off the stand and puts his head back down. Brutal legend hanging in the background. I'm gonna drive. I'm gonna answer this phone call. Bad news? Gonna drive home. Daylight spills in through the space between drawn curtains. We pull back to see David. He's a mess, passed out with his mouth open, drooling. We pull back further to see feet next to David's head, then further to see Tim crashed out in bed with David. Well, I think that was a success. It seems like we got lucky after all. Well, I don't want to go infinitely down this path. Not the most exciting game that we've seen in the Game Jam, but fun nonetheless. Still pretty entertaining, I'd say. So thank you guys so much for watching. I still have 3 more games from this Amnesia Fortnight to check out, so stick around for those.